All right, we have Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford. So, Joey, you won here at Charlotte Motor Speedway before, but what would it mean to you to get that Coke 600 win?
Yeah, the Coke 600 to me is a crown jewel event. I think of Daytona 500, Brickyard 400, Coca-Cola 600. I think are the three of the biggest races we have all year. As a Coca-Cola driver, I'd like to be spraying this stuff all over Victory Lane. That'd be really nice. So we've been able to win here in the fall race a couple times, but be really special to win the 600-mile race here right now. So feel like we should have a decent shot at it. Today's kind of a interesting day. Usually, for 600 week, you don't want to put a bunch of miles on your motor in practice, so everyone kind of stays in qualifying trim here for today. So you don't really know what you got for race trim, and it's just focused on trying to make as fastest lap as you can today. We were joking. I said, hopefully we make 6 laps today is what we were hoping. 3 in practice and 3 in qualifying. That's kind of just how this schedule works right now with the shorter practice and obviously the extra 100 miles in the race. So today's all about one lap speed, and we'll come back Saturday and keep working on our car to try to make it fast enough to win the race.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions. Go to Jacob.
Jacob Zielman, Speed Sport. Joey, a couple of fellow Summer Shootout alum have been in here earlier today. So now I'll talk to you because you kind of dominated that scene for a while when you were in your younger years. Talk about what it has meant to come up.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means the shootout's getting older, just like the rest of us.
I know it's happening. It's happening today.
Yeah, 25th anniversary this year, Joey. Talk about what it's meant to come up through running the quarter mile at Charlotte, and what it means to see the shootout reach a milestone like that.
Yeah, of course. For me, the summer shootout was always so much fun. That's where a lot of us learned how to race. You learn the nuts and bolts of how to drive a car and how to race other people, and some cases how to fight each other. We had a lot of fun back then. It was pretty rough too. There's a lot of bumping and banging in Legends cars. So it was a good time. For me, it was always me and Reagan, Reed Sorensen. Those were the Van Wingerdens, and those guys were the ones that we were always competing against when I was racing here. And I know Bubba raced here. He just left. I know he was kind of the class after me, but definitely a lot of fun. We had a blast. It was for me is me and my dad just coming up here. We were from Atlanta at the time, and we'd come up here and try to figure it out and try to race with those guys, and we just had a good time trying to do it, and was pretty successful at it. So we had a good time.
Back here on left.
Hey, Joey, I'm sure there's been a lot of buzz around Penske, with the Hall of Fame announcements this week. But, you had another nominee on your team with your car chief, Raymond Fox. Can you just speak a little bit about, even though he didn't get it, what, having a guy who's been around the sport as long as him has meant to your team?
Yeah, that's Raymond is his grandfather. So Raymond's our car chief. It's his grandfather. But still really cool, obviously, to have history in our race team from 2 different areas, obviously with Roger Penske and with Raymond as well. So that's definitely something really cool. I think Roger obviously getting into the Hall of Fame, that's to me is the biggest award you can get in the sport, right? That's in the Hall of Fame, that's as good as it gets. So definitely a well-deserving crowd. And you look at the drivers and owners that got inducted here, or I guess got picked. I don't know what we call them at this point, but they're picked to go in the Hall of Fame next year. That's it's an impressive crowd, when you think about who they are and what they've done, and to drive for a Hall of Famer like Roger Penske is only a matter of time before he was inducted into there. And I think with not only the race wins and championships that come along with the pedigree, but what he's done for the sport as far as the racetracks. I think he has as much reason for him to get in the Hall of Fame as anything, on how he's able to build our sport from the fan side and the promoting side. I thought was pretty impressive as well.
We're going to go Jerry Daniel Lee.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net. Performance Racing Network. First off, I think you just had a birthday, so happy birthday.
I can't hear anything you're saying.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Also, with the Hall of Fame.
I can't hear anymore. See what happens? I'm getting older. I can't hear.
Well, you've been around for a while.
Yeah, I know.
So, with that said, at some point in the future, do you see yourself ever making it into the Hall of Fame? And if you do, what do you think your legacy would be in this sport?
I mean, I hope so. I'd like to be in the Hall of Fame. That's the ultimate goal, right? And to get there, I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I think you have to contribute to the sport in a lot of different ways. Obviously, wins, championships, that's part of it. But I think what you do off the racetrack a lot of times can get you in the Hall of Fame as well. And what you do for the community, what you do for our racing community as well, and how we build our sport to be bigger, and really taking some ownership in what this thing is all about, and not just driving a race car and going home at the end of the day and not caring about anything else in our sport. That's not. I don't believe that's a Hall of Fame type of person. You know, and the people that are obviously in the Hall of Fame right now didn't think that way at all. They were invested 100% into our sport and how to grow our sport, and obviously that came along with race wins, but they used those race wins for something good, and that to me is a big part of it. Hopefully that's someday I can do that. I'm trying my hardest, doing everything I can do, trying to do race as much as I can, win as many races as I can, and try to be invested in the sport and be in every meeting I possibly can outside of that. So that would be a great accomplishment, one that I would say would be my largest accomplishment if I ever got to that point. Yep.
Daniel?
Daniel McFadden with NBC Sports. Joey, how has your strategical approach to this race changed since your rookie year? How has it evolved, especially with the introduction of the stage format last year?
Yes, I remember my first 600-mile race here, and I remember wearing the brakes off the car pretty quick, and actually got faster when I wore the brakes off, so there was more to it at that moment. But it's definitely a racetrack that, a race, the 600-mile race, that you typically, wouldn't go hard every lap when there wasn't stages. But now, those stage points are so important. Qualifying's important. Keeping yourself up front. But I think more than anything now, I guess as a driver, I've realized the swing that this track's going to go through and where you are from the beginning to the end of the race. This track changes more than any track we go to from day to night. And it's going to go through, a couple swings, right? It's going to go from hot sun out to that twilight kind of moment to dark and cooling off, and the groove comes back down to the bottom. All that stuff will definitely come into play. And then now we got this PJ1 stuff, which Lord knows what's going to happen with that. So there's a lot to take into consideration when we're out there on the track, and the adjustments we make will be key during every pit stop. And I think it just, over time you start to understand what those are more and more.
We're going to go Lee, Woody, and then Reed.
Just wondering, with the package you guys raced last weekend, and giving your prowess on restrictor plate tracks, it wasn't surprising that you were that good. But did your team incorporate any characteristics or anything, I guess, tangible off your Daytona car that would have been used on your car last weekend?
It's a great question. Honestly, I probably can't honestly answer that question for a couple of recent reasons. I can't tell you, but like I said last week, it's a kind of a hybrid of them both, right? When we go to Daytona, Talladega, especially Talladega, you're pretty trimmed out. Handling's not a huge deal, so you try to trim the cars out as much as you can, take the downforce, which takes the drag off, and trying to just create a top speed. I think you saw a mix of cars last week. You saw some cars, in my mind, I think of the 47 as a car that handled great, looked like he had a lot of downforce in the car, but didn't have the speed to maintain up front. You look at the 4, kind of looked the other way. It looked like when he got out front, he was hard to pass, like he didn't have much drag. but when he got in the back of the pack there, he wasn't making big moves. Like his car was way faster than everybody and able to drive up there easily. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and how that will evolve if we run this package again or whatever happens in the future will be interesting to see how that is. And for each track will be different too, right? I mean, we're talking about one track here at Charlotte, you know, and I thought it was just kind of it was an interesting race to see that. And obviously as the sun went down, the cars that had more speed and less handling showed to be better. So I thought that was just an interesting thing to look at and learn from last week. But to answer your question, do you take much from Talladega? A little bit, you know, driving style, the draft, how that works. You think a little bit about it, but it's still handling came into play quite a bit throughout the race for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not as much as it was here. You know, yes, the cars have way more downforce on them with the bigger spoiler than what we had at Daytona Talladega. You know, handling wasn't a big deal, especially in dirty air when you lost all that downforce. That big spoiler in the back makes the air dirtier, but we're not going as fast, and you're almost wide open, so it doesn't really have a huge effect on losing the car in front of you. But it has a huge effect on just these big moments, right? It looked like we had that in the race. So you had cars that just all of a sudden would jump out sideways and slide up the racetrack, and you had these big moments in the race. I thought that was interesting and fun to watch, entertaining for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's some things that transfer over, but the package is still very different from what Daytona Talladega is.
I'm going to go Woody and then Reed.
Woody Kane with MRN. Joey, look ahead for us, if you will, at Pocono next week. You're a former winner there. When you set your car up, are you a guy that likes to chase one corner and be really good or be pretty good in all three?
I want to be really good in all three, if at all possible. That's what we shoot for. You know, and I think every corner is pretty important. I honestly, I think turn 3 and turn 1 are probably the two most important corners. If I'm going to have to compromise, I'm going to compromise turn 2. But the car that wins there and the fastest car typically has a really good 1 and 3 and a decent 2. You know, not that they completely throw it away. There's somehow they get it through that corner fairly well as well. You know, so I think, you know, you try to figure out ways to tie all 3 corners together. A lot of times 2 and 3 kind of go together, and 1's the outlier with all the banking down there. But, you know, I think, you know, as a goal, I try to set high goals, and my goal is to have 3 really good corners. That's my thought. Or 6. How do we look at that? If this is 4 corners, that should be 6 or 3. It should be 2 corners if that's 3 corners. Something to think about.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Given how much this track does change from day to night, if you're really good in the daylight, how do you anticipate what you might need when the sun goes down?
Just over history, really, and you know, just races under your belt. You know, and it's not just for the race, but think about, we just practiced in the heat of the day, and we're going to qualify into the night as the sun's going down. And the track's going to have quite a bit of transition, and it's going to change quite a bit. And the Xfinity cars are laying down rubber, right? We didn't really lay down any rubber, just making qualifying runs. So these guys are making long runs now. What that'll do to the racetrack, what it'll do to the PJ1 that's on the racetrack, as the track cools off, what that's going to do. You know, we just kind of go through our notes and what's happened in the past, and we take an educated guess at it, and then hope for the best after that.
All right. Thanks, Joey, and good luck this weekend.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.